Have you ever wondered why people is becoming more and more obsessed with virtual influencers, 3D avatars and digital aesthetics? If you're an Instagram user especially, you might have encountered or followed accounts of digital people. Computer-generated models are in exponential growth, and some of them are now recognized as influencers and even collaborate with big fashion industry brands. Real human influencers, instead, have started to digitally manipulate their photos, incorporating 3D elements and digital clothing in their work routine. Of course, these trends are new and refreshing, and they boost social media servers with fairly cool content. But there is more than that, and you might be surprised to hear that these trends are actually consciously or more unconsciously embracing a much greater purpose: sustainability. I'm going to highlight to you some of the potential of 3D art and the role that it can play towards building a more sustainable future, especially in regards to the fashion industry. 3D softwares allow users to create any kind of three-dimensional object with the potential for it to become animated or even interactive. We have already seen how 3D is being utilized in video games, but it's only more recently that 3D is being widely adopted in other areas too, such as music videos, architecture, design, medicine, and fashion. As 3D allows to create entire digital worlds without the use of any physical material, it quite simply just doesn't generate any material waste, thus making it more sustainable than any other creation methods before. The trial and error of a designer that can simply delete a digital object without actually generating trash is something that is starting to generate a lot of interest from companies that want to embrace a more sustainable approach. The coronavirus outbreak this 2020 and the consequence of the lockdown saw most events being cancelled, thus challenging companies to think about alternative options. This year's challenge have pushed many companies to start creating digital and online events to replace so-called real-life events. In fashion, we've seen a rise of digital catwalks or even fully digital events, such as the one that Helsinki Fashion Week created this year, involving a large amount of digital designers and 3D artists like myself to make it happen. This digital fashion event required lots of 3D avatars that could wear the digital designer clothing. I myself created some 3D avatars for Helsinki Fashion Week, as well as the personal avatar of the founder Evelyn Mora. I was approached by Evelyn in March 2020, and as I would usually do for the creation of digital portrait avatars, I've asked her to provide me photographic references of her face from different angles. The first 2 weeks were spent mostly to model the 3D humanoid according to her real features. The second part was much more about tweaking things around to make the avatar's face look as similar as her as possible. These include working with details, followed by creating her skin and all the textures. But the most challenging part of creating an avatar is to catch the person's energy and finest facial expression that make people so unique. Creating an avatar only took around 3 weeks, but we utilized the avatar in many different ways. We realized stills and animation, collaborated with other artists and designers, using her avatar to promote Fashion Week, and actually used it as a model to wear a multitude of designer clothing and share everything online. Evelyn's avatar struck the attention of many individuals and companies that them too wish to get their avatar done to be utilized for various online purposes. They have reached out to me to get one that either looks just like themselves or is customized to their needs. Avatars can be used in fact for different purposes: to represent someone's self digitally and in social media, to create or increase a brand identity, to participate in online events or at events where you can physically be present. They can be used in the fashion industry with specific body measurements for the creation of digital clothing, as well as being used for catwalks, shows, or utilized by users prior to purchasing an outfit to make sure it actually fits. And last but not least, custom avatars also promote inclusivity of different body types, as well as a gender-neutral approach that we don't usually see in real-life stores. Because of the versatility of digital tools, clothing that can be modified to fit any avatar, gender or shape, digital fashion and 3D artists are likely going to become the pioneers of a future world that promotes inclusivity, sustainability, and hopefully a safe place where everyone will be free to express themselves and embrace their peculiarities. Now, of course, you might wonder whether a massive shift into digital is truly going to be sustainable. Of course, technology always comes with all its pros and cons, and we know that technology can generate electronic waste. As it develops at high speed, consumers easily tend to replace their electronic phones, tablets, laptops, and so on with always newer items to catch up with technology. Now, while e-waste is something real and should be readdressed with more reuse, repair, and resale of the products, e-waste still generates way less trash than the textile and fashion industry currently do. As these new approaches are embraced by young artists and designers like myself, and finding our way into the world through these languages, we are embracing the responsibility of building a different and a better future in the digital realm. We are envisioning a digital realm that isn't dark and dystopian, but rather an amazing resource. Of course, there is a lot of skepticism toward the digital and its potentials because we know how powerful it is. But let's think about this for a moment. How many of us have been invited to a Fashion Week event in our life? I'm pretty sure that most of us haven't been recognized important enough for such invites because fashion weeks have traditionally been very inclusive. But what if we realize that with 3D tools, we have the potential of building a new virtual world where everyone is more included and represented, and where fast fashion does not exist? Fast fashion is something that is no longer sustainable, and young designers are offering an alternative way to create things. Now is the time for us to start building a world where digital designers and 3D artists are fairly credited and paid for their work, and get rid of the labor exploitation problem that is causing underpaid slavery in poorer countries. We have now an opportunity to rebuild things from scratch and avoiding the mistakes that we made in the past. Now is the time to construct new rules and embrace sustainability as a mindset. I dream of a future where big brands rely on emerging and young artists to build a future that is based on technology. A world where digital artists are always credited and paid fairly, avoiding the exploitation of labor, as opposed to what is happening today. Online trends are in most cases not just a shallow representation of society, but an important surface manifestation of deeper important factors that need to be acknowledged and addressed. I'd like to thank everyone for listening, and I really hope that in future everyone will be looking at online trends with more depth.